Coming up today on the Raiders Report, should the Silver and Black trade up with the Chicago Bears to the number 1 overall pick? We'll talk about what Schefter said and if it makes sense. And then Jalen Ramsey continues to get linked to the Raiders. Does it make sense for the Silver and Black to trade for one of the best, if not the best cornerback in the NFL? That's all coming up today on the Raiders Report, hosted by Mitchell Renz. And before we get into that, I want to know from all of you, if you could have one Raiders jersey, who would it be? What would it be? I know my first Raiders jersey was Derek Carr. Now I got a Bo Jackson. I got a Devontae Adams. I also have a lot of the GOATs, Wild One, Tri-Van, Buddy Bear, Hellcat Q. I got a lot of Raiders jerseys. But if you could have one, who would it be? Let me know down in the comments. I would say this: if you trade up to number 1, it's probably going to be that quarterback that you end up taking. And the reason why that we're talking about it here today on the Raiders Report, because not only do we talk about the Raiders, that's a given, but when big-time NFL news happens, I like to be able to discuss it, and then in terms of how it could potentially impact the Silver and Black. And if you don't think that this report is going to impact the Raiders in any way necessary, you're completely wrong on that. So when Schefter said bright and early, the Bears already have been approached by multiple teams about trading the draft's number 1 overall pick, and Chicago is said to be leaning toward moving the pick. So the number 1 pick now looks like it is up for sale. That impacts the Raiders, whether they make the deal for it or somebody else goes up and takes a quarterback, because the main discussion around Ziegler, around McDaniels, is if you don't get Aaron Rodgers, if you re-sign Jarrett Stidham, or you're just looking for a stopgap guy, and you're hoping that that quarterback falls to you at 7, whoever trades up for number 1, they're going to be taking a quarterback. So the question is this: do you trade up to number 1? With the Raiders, with the Rodgers rumors and questions, could LV actually be able to go up and take it? I know this: if you're going to go all the way up for the Raiders to go number 1, dude, you better get your guy. And when I have my rankings here for the top 5 quarterbacks in this class, Hendon Hooker, he's not going to be at the Combine participating because he has the ACL injury. He's the only one on here, though, that will not be a first-round pick. And the more and more people that I talk to, also Tom Downey, Chat Sports, I'm not going to be going, but we are going to have a member out at the NFL Scouting Combine, and I'm going to be telling Tom, hey, don't be afraid to ask some questions. But the more and more people I talk to, I really do. I think both Richardson, Will Levis, C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young are all going to be gone in the top 10 picks. And for these teams that potentially trade up to number 1, could somebody get ballsy and take the high upside of a Will Levis, take the high upside of an Anthony Richardson? Yes, I have Bryce Young ranked number 1, but to me, he is the safest person. And I actually think that in terms of being able to run the McDaniels offense the best, because that's how I do my rankings on the show, I actually think that Bryce Young would be able to run the offense probably the best compared to all these quarterbacks, though his ceiling is not nearly as high as the other 3 options, but I do think his floor is the safest. So my question that I'm going to ask all y'all right now, and this is actually going to be the pinned comment on today's Rumors video: should the Raiders trade up to the number 1 overall pick? Give me a Y for yes, give me an N for no, why you're getting hit with that YouTube ad break. My answer is no, and this is a very, very simple answer, and if you've watched the show before, you'll already know. I went back probably 2-3 weeks ago, and I tried to show y'all how much it would cost the Raiders to move up and take the number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, and all the way up to the number 5 pick. And if Ziegler wants to sit up there and say, man, we don't really want to invest a lot of draft capital into only one position, with the amount of needs that this team has, not only on the defensive side of the football, but the amount of needs they have on the defensive side of the football, to you to give up all these picks, it just doesn't make sense to me. This is according to the trade value chart, and if you don't know what the trade value chart is, you can Google it, and it gives you a ballpark estimate of how much they think it would cost to go up to number 1. So according to them, your first round picks for the next 3 years, and then your 38th and your 70th. So say goodbye to your first, your second, and your third this year, and then your first round pick in the next 2 years. Like, I get that the upside might be there. Caleb Williams, Drake May, I'm not going to lie to you, I would have the conversation. But the quarterbacks in this year's class, there is nobody that I am that much in love with to give up this much. Though I say that, and if you were to ask me, Mitch, would you give up all your first-round picks from 2019, 2020, and 2021? My answer to that would be yes around the Raiders. But, hey, sooner or later, you got to actually start being able to draft. Coming up next here on the Raiders Report, we're going to be looking at some other teams that I actually think could trade up to number one, and it does impact the Raiders because if you make that move, a quarterback goes off the board, and then there's a chance that the guy that you want is potentially not there at number 7. Before I get into that, though, today's show is presented by our good friends, Athletic Greens, and one of the rules we have here on the Raiders Report is if you're going to party hard, you better freaking take care of yourself, and that's why I got started with Athletic Greens. Head on over to athleticgreens.com/chatsports. I take AG1 by Athletic Greens literally every day. Get comprehensive and convenient daily nutrition at athleticgreens.com/chatsports. I gave AG1 a try because I wanted immune system support and wanted a supplement that tastes great. I take AG1 in the morning and it makes me feel ready to take on my day. My grandma always said the early bird gets the worm, and AG1 inspires and motivates me to get as many worms as possible every day. AG1 really helps me getting my day started, getting out of bed, especially after a long weekend. It can be difficult, and I'm a person who likes and needs a routine. AG1 helps me stick to my healthy routine. Wake up early, take my AG1, take my dog Chuck for a walk, then hit the gym before work. Covering my nutritional basis for the daily literally couldn't be easier, which is why I trust Athletic Greens. I just mix one small scoop of AG1 with water, drink it first thing each morning. Done! I also like it because it costs less than $3 a day. That's pretty freaking good if you ask me. It's a really effective daily habit with the highest quality sourced ingredients. It is a win-win. So, if a comprehensive solution is what you need from your supplement routine, then Athletic Greens is giving you a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. So what are you waiting for? Go to athleticgreens.com/chatsports. That's athleticgreens.com/chatsports. It's going to promote healthy guts, healthy immune system. It's going to boost your energy if you're crashing a little bit in the morning, and if you're not a coffee drinker, give it a try. It's going to be in the comments. It's going to be in the description of today's video, athleticgreens.com/chatsports. So let's look at some other teams that could potentially trade up to number one. If you want to know which team I think is the most likely, I did make a video over on our main YouTube channel this morning, ranking them from 5 all the way down to number 1. I tweeted it out if it's easier to find it that way, at MitchellWren365. But I do think that all of these teams are potentially in there, and I do think the teams that are in the top 10 have a much easier route of being able to do that. But with all of this being said, some people are going to ask me, Mitch, and I've already had people ask me, do you actually think it is possible to move up to number 1? My answer is this: no. It is 0 just win babies tuck rule, and you can just tuck it and go put it somewhere, because this organization is not going to move up to number 1. Realistically, I think the most realistic, spot to trade up if you're the Raiders is number 3. Like, the 3 spot to me is the one where that's where they would go up. You're not going to go all the way up to number 1, and I get it. Teams have called. This is also the prime time of the year with the combine around where teams start throwing out smoke signals, or I'm going to call them fake flares, because what if the Bears haven't had as much talk? Because I know this. If I was Chicago, I wouldn't want the number 1 pick. I wouldn't want it. I would want to trade back. I would want to get more draft capital. So by them saying, oh yeah, there's a lot of teams calling us right now, that could make a team like Houston, maybe like Indianapolis, I don't know, Carolina, Atlanta, some of these other aggressive teams, and be like, oh, crap, you hear that? Somebody else is going to get the guy we want. And then trades start to get going. There is no way under the sun the Raiders trade up for the number 1 overall pick. They need a lot more than just a quarterback. Next story up here on today's show is around Jalen Ramsey. And I've already given my opinion on Ramsey coming to the Raiders before, and this has been a dude that, man, I've been talking about since he came out of the Brinks truck all the way back in 2019, because at that time he begged, he pleaded to be a member of the Silver and Black. But there are new updates out there, and it's because, well, you see players, they start going on social media over the weekend, and Jalen Ramsey quote tweeted this tweet, which essentially, if you can't see it, there was a scientist, he conducted an experiment, and essentially what it was what's faster, a greyhound dog or a cheetah? And it can't really see it all too well, but essentially what the guy said was the cheetah didn't run, and he created the quote around it, which was, sometimes, actually, let me get it right. Sometimes trying to prove that you're the best is an insult. If you don't know that a cheetah is faster than a greyhound, then you probably think that people might be faster than dogs as well. So then what happened, Davante Adams on his Instagram story posted the light bulb, and a lot of people were like, wait a minute, Jalen Ramsey did this. Davante Adams is now talking about it. We've seen Max Crosby and Jalen Ramsey talk. We've seen Ramsey respond to past Raiders players' Instagrams. The Ramsey to Las Vegas rumors never seem like they are going to go away. And today, Ramsey again linked to the silver and black because apparently, according to ESPN NFL Insider Jeremy Fowler, he said the Raiders and then another team have at least a chance of getting Ramsey in a trade. So I saw that, and I was like, all right, it's kind of interesting. So the Raiders are one of the teams interested in trading for Ramsey, and when you look at Ramsey, you got to look at the contract. And the reason why we're even talking about this is because the Rams, they released Bobby Wagner. They could potentially be going through a little bit of a rebuild. So if the Rams move on from Ramsey, who's got a $25.2 million dead cap hit, I mean, you could save a little bit of money. And when you're one of the best cornerbacks, if not the best cornerback in the league, there's going to be some teams interested in you. So if the Raiders, let's say, do the deal, right? Money and money alone, it's going to cost them $17 million in 2023. However, though, he doesn't have any guarantees in 2024 and no guarantees in 2025. So you might be able to make a trade here for Jalen and do a one-year rental, see how it goes, and so on and so forth. The reason why also people like this idea is because you need a replacement for Rock Ya-Sin. I'm curious to see if the Silver and Black decide to kick Nate Hobbs back in the nickel where he definitely excelled at where he was a rookie. If not, all good. You could put Jalen Ramsey on one side of the field, and he's going to really shut it down because whether you like him, dislike him, I love that he talks. He's a top 5 cornerback in the National Football League. So what I decided to do here is this. I reached out to one of my buddies, and I said, how much do you think? And he's tied in pretty well with the Rams. And I said, give me a trade for Jalen Ramsey, and be real with me. And he said, it's gonna cost 2 second-rounders. Cool. So would you do this deal? A second-round pick in 2023, and then a second-round pick in 2024. This is Los Angeles essentially saying, all right, we traded 2 first-rounders for him. If we can get 2 seconds, that's great. It is better than just outright releasing him, but Jalen has kind of already said that he's not going to be released, which I do find to be kind of funny. But who wins this trade here? Do you think it's the Raiders, or do you think it's the Los Angeles Rams? Let me know down in the comments section. I will continue to say that if I'm the Raiders, I don't make the deal for Ramsey. Is he a great corner? Yes. He is coming off one of his more down years, I would say, as a pro. But to me, this is another opportunity where if the Rams actually want to move on from him, they might actually do it. And if he becomes a free agent, signing Ramsey is a lot different than trading because, yeah, giving up 2 second-rounders for Ramsey, if you would have told me that last season, I'd be like, that's never going to happen. And it is a good deal. But this team, again, still has so many holes. And if they are legitimately trying to do a rebuild, you need to hit on those draft picks. You need that extra draft capital. And if we'll see. Trading for Ramsey, I'm still in the boat of no, this team has too many needs. In terms of signing Ramsey if he becomes a free agent, then yes, that is a much different story to me. On top of that also, I mean, this year's draft class is pretty deep at the cornerback position. However, though, it's not zero just win, babies. In terms of how likely is it that it's going to happen, I do got to give it at least one. I have talked to a current Raiders player who told me that he would love to have Jalen Ramsey, which, again, this is kind of like the, well, no shit, who wouldn't want to have one of the best cornerbacks in the National Football League? I don't think it's anything over 5-10%. But to say that there's 0%, that's just me lying to you. The longer and longer this debate goes on, and if the Rams are okay with at least getting something for Jalen, then the trade might actually go down. This week at the NFL Scouting Combine, a lot of NFL coaches, a lot of GMs, going to be a lot of talking. A lot of rumors going to be getting going, so don't be surprised if you hear more from Jalen Ramsey potentially coming to the Silver and Black. Now, before I wrap up today's show, if you haven't already, give me a follow on Twitter, give me a follow on IG, and I already did a live show over on Locals where we took a quarterback in a mock draft at number 7 overall. Go check it out, RaidersReport.locals.com.